Cool. So welcome to the Third Eye Workshop. And one of the things that I've learned over the years in my own psychic development, in my own spiritual development, that underlies everything is we need to demystify mysticism. And if you think about the veil of Maya, as is often said in older Eastern scriptures, there's veils between layers of realities. And you can think of a veil as like a semi-transparent cloth. And the way to, look under the veil at deeper layers of reality is something a lot of us have thought about and explored. Some people use biochemical means like psychedelics. Some people do deep chanting or lucid dreaming or get in meditative states. Some people do sweat lodges. Some people combine everything and have it be something very powerful. And no matter how it's done, what we often find is that veil ends up coming back. Our biochemistry returns to normal, our cognitive states return to normal, and our pineal glands say like, okay, I've had a workout, I'm tired, let's go back to the physical world. And what I want to share with all of you is something that I've had the benefit of experiencing through trying a lot of those methods and many more, is when you get to a certain level of development, you can see through that veil at a moment's notice. In any type of scenario for any type of information. And in my book, Magic is Real, I write about what I call an ego filter. So if you've heard of channeling, and if you know of channelers, often they say information comes from higher sources, higher powers, higher spirits, and it comes out their human body. Neil Donald Walsh in his Conversations with God series, a great book series I read when I was 13, did it through automatic writing. A lot of people like Esther Hicks and Bashar do it through speaking. And a lot of people speak in a different voice and they attribute what's coming through as a different entity. A lot of people channel other beings. I went on a retreat once and there was a group of people called the Michaels, and apparently they all channeled a different part of Archangel Michael. And I thought that was quite interesting. What if we ask every single one of them the same question? Will it be, verbatim the same thing? And so this idea of an ego filter, if you think about water through a sieve, or say through the shower, right? If you have pure water through a lake, it goes through all these filtration systems before it gets to you. Maybe some of that water originally came from a sewer, and so you want it to be extremely well filtered, and some of it was pure. Yet ultimately, as it goes along the way until it comes out to you through your faucet, through your shower, things get added and things get taken away. And so when you think about channeling information from higher sources, or oppositely, taking your awareness through that veil of Maya into the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and above dimensions, what could get in the way? And if I look down, I'm just seeing if anybody else wants to come to let them in. And what could get in the way is a number of different types of things. And so the reason we use methods to assist us is to give extra energy to pierce that veil, to hold it open, to remove some of the impurities. And so if you think about a channeler, you think about your own vision quest, and you see something that isn't perfectly clear, or you get information that isn't perfectly precisely accurate, it's, oh, maybe there's particulates of copper in that water. How do you get that water even more pure? And so a lot of us use water filters in our showers and our drains. But for a channel, or for you developing psychic abilities, how do you know if there is a filter distorting that information? How do you know if your psychology is involved? How do you know if cognitive biases are involved? Or if you use biochemical means, psychedelics or anything else? A lot of times, especially in early stages, deep down we might doubt, well, how much of this could be fantasy or could be delusion or could even be your subconscious projected? And then, you can get really deep into it and realize, well, if you're creating reality, your subconscious, the bulk of the iceberg under the water, is the whole world projected around you. So I want to simplify all of this and just start with the foundations and build up from there. And I just ask for you to bear with me for 2 or 3 minutes, even if I say something that might sound familiar or that you might know or say you might have already heard of. I'd like to offer you the thought that empty your cup and think of it in a whole new way. So starting from the base 3D level of reality, as I wrote about in Magic is Real, I have this 9D model of reality. And in the 3D reality of time and space, there is separation. There is total duality. So I'm me, you're you, and except for pheromones and microbes and things like that that go back and forth, and if you really go to it, electrons that might go back and forth as if, for close in person, we're separate beings. And so for me to know information about you, I have to get direct words or images or other information on the 3D plane. And when you start going up to 4D, so the fourth dimension in my map is the astral energetic, that's when you can start getting extrasensory information, extrasensory perception, ESP, this type of thing. And so I might start to pick up on your chi. And if you start to develop psychic abilities or get in a heightened state, you might start being able to read that information from other people. Now, in early stages, this is usually only at higher amounts of energy. So I'll just use the word altered state of consciousness, and you can apply that whatever you want. It could be biochemical, it could be in deep meditation, it could be a massive spike in emotions. Often if we're very close to somebody, we have a partner, a lover, a family member that is experiencing a really, really powerful scenario, we might feel it. I had a partner once who was in San Francisco, I was in Palo Alto, and he was in theater. And before he went on stage, he hit his head really, really hard in something in the set. And I didn't know this at the time, but my head started to just throb, and I had a headache for 2 hours, and I don't get random headaches. And after his show, he called me on the phone, we just caught up, and I asked what happened, and he said he hit his head. I'm like, that's interesting. I felt that. So if you think about the link of picking up information on other people, a lot of these dimensional things can parallel. So you're hearing my voice because your ears are working, my vocal cords are working, and our technology is working. And the only filter between what I'm saying and what you're perceiving is really your psychology. If you have certain beliefs about me or certain ways you interpret the words I'm saying or the context, you have strong, meaningful stories about anything I've said, you might interpret my language differently. And so now we start getting to variation in the 4D world of vibration. If I hold up this beautiful friendship bracelet, for example, that a good friend gave to me once, we could all agree that this is a turquoise turtle. But, the exact shade of turquoise, you might say cerulean, I might say it's a light sky blue, and ultimately it doesn't matter. And in the 3D world, it's very similar, but as soon as we start getting into interpretation, we have differences. So now you go into the psychic world, people who can peer through the veil of Maya, people who have their third eye somewhat open. And you look at the TV shows and somebody's like, oh, I'm picking up an M, somebody in your family, and it's super vague. Or you hear people who are very accurate or maybe very fraudulent. And the difference there is the vibration that's coming through isn't perfectly accurately coming through. If it was, they would have the exact person's name, facial descriptions, date of birth, every single bit of information. And the perfect psychics and the super psychics can actually do this. Steve Jobs' guru's guru, Sri Yukteswar, who was the guru of the guy who wrote Autobiography of a Yogi, could sit in front of somebody and tell them exactly what they were thinking down to a specific detail. So he had really, really a lot of precision there. So how do you understand how to open your third eye psychically? And how do you get that deep level of information? Well, there's a lot of common info out there and other books, other webinars, and I don't want to repeat it because if you're dedicated, you'll look into it, and I want to be considerate of your time. But ultimately, it goes down to a few things. And the first is the health of your pineal gland. So the bridge between the third and fourth dimension is your pineal gland. It's the center of your brain. And the first bit of homework research for you, if you're a dedicated student, is Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, Becoming Supernatural. And I think it's chapter 9. It's somewhere towards the middle end of his book, where he has an entire chapter on the pineal gland, Pineal, and this thing called the piezoelectric effect, and how the pineal gland converts melatonin to serotonin to tryptophan to DMT. And as some of you may know, DMT, dimethyltryptamine, is responsible for deep, powerful, intense visions. And so for the skeptical side of us, well, if we're having a vision, how do we know we're not just seeing things? How do we know things are accurate? And that's where it gets on the topic of validation. So in my book, I have a ladder of manifestation that starts with idea and thought and belief and hope and faith and knowledge. And then after knowledge, there's validation. So if I perceive that one of you was running and fell 2 days ago and hit their knee on a table, and it's your left knee, and it's the middle upper corner of your left knee, and it's kind of throbbing, and you have a little bit of a bruise, and you're wondering if it's actually damaged because it's still hurting, and that's exactly true, then I have a lot more clear information. My pineal gland is a lot more specifically functioning accurately. And to give another example, I was at a party last weekend. I saw a couple. The couple was having some issues, and they asked me what was up, how to help them. And I tuned into the guy, and I said, 2 or 3 of your exes were a certain way, and I'm telling the story very fast, and I described what was happening, and I said, you have to let that go. Don't don't project that on the current relationship. And with the woman, I said, I'm getting stuff from your early childhood, from your dad, that you have certain ideas about sexuality and romance you're projecting onto your current relationship, and you're feeling shame, and you're not unleashing your full passionate, heartfelt self because of that. And when I said those things, both people were like, oh my gosh, how did you know? And I knew because I tuned in, and they were giving off certain energies, certain frequencies. So how do you get your pineal gland healthy where you can get this information and it translates through the conversion of melatonin, serotonin, tryptophan, and DMT, so you can get the images and information? Well, first, adding spirulina to your diet can really do a lot. Spirulina pulls out heavy metals. It can detoxify the fluoride that's in a lot of our water that can mess up the pineal gland or calcify it if you look it up deeply. Secrets of the Pineal Gland is a beautiful video. I think Spirit Science put it out. And as you get this physical organ healthy, and physical organs are easy to read about and understand about, its functioning will improve. And as you further your studies and learn about the bridges between the 3D world and 4D world, you'll realize, oh, I'll be able to perceive my reality better. And a perfect analogy for this is the eye. If your eye is cloudy with, crust and mucus, and you wake up in the morning, your visual perceptions will be off. If your nose is stuffed or your nerves are pinched in either organ, your perceptions will be off. So the third eye, because it's a lot more complicated and all this electricity comes into your brain and the pineal gland's right in the middle, psychology can get in the way a little bit too. So for example, say with either of those people, I had a strong inferiority complex, and I wanted to come off as really powerful and really dominant. And I chose to share my message in a way that would make them dependent on me. And I would say, here's 10%, and I'll need $30,000 to say the rest. But I said it in a really crafty way. That would me be putting a selfish ego and a distortion of the message and putting a selfish intent above a message, and not being of spiritual service where I'm just giving without asking anything. I wasn't trying to pitch them on sessions. I gave them my card. If they call me, great. If they don't, fine. And so if you're trying to perceive things psychically, but you have an ulterior motive, you have another agenda, you're trying to read somebody's mind, or you really have a strong emotional attachment to things working out a certain way, then as the electricity goes through your brain into your pineal gland, as you're trying to peer through that veil of Maya, all your other attentions might get in the way and distort that information. And unless you have a lot of really subtle awareness, you may not be aware of this fact. So the best way to get psychic information is to actually proceed down the process of enlightenment. Because as you proceed down the process of enlightenment, through whatever tradition, book, or teacher, you detach from things. Things don't matter as much. You can still be engaged with life, but your emotions detach from reactions to things and desires to things to simple choices. And this can be easier with some things than others. If somebody runs up to you and kicks you in the face and steals your wallet and hurts all of your family and gives hate speech on TV, it might take a bit more work to have less emotional reaction with them than, say, somebody who cuts you off in traffic, or somebody who has a mental illness and says something to you that if they didn't have that mental illness, you would have taken it a different way, and it's easier to forgive them. So as you go along the enlightenment path, you start to become independent of emotional reaction. You start to shift away from stories. You start to feel more oneness with all things. And as you do, you realize that as you're reading somebody's aura, as you're picking up on their vibration, their information, all you're doing is learning about another aspect of yourself. And it's easier to have compassion, forgiveness, and curiosity and total detachment. It's like if you're looking at your arm and you're like, oh, do I have a freckle on my arm? Oh, do I have 3 freckles? Oh, how big is that one? How dark is that one? And, freckles generally on your arm are pretty meaningless. And as you can detach and as you can relax, you can open your energetic channels. You can open the parts of your brain to allow the blood to flow fully, psychologically, physically, energetically, and allow that information to come in an unbiased way. So another way of helping the pineal gland be very healthy and opening your third eye and developing certain abilities is being in dark spaces. So if you've noticed, your eyes, your pupils shrink when there's a lot of light, and they widen when there's not a lot of light. And this is a very basic biological phenomenon. If there's not a lot of light, your body needs to physically take in more light to see. And your third eye, has its own way of perceiving, and your physical eyes often can be distracting. It's often said that 80% of our brain's processing is related to our visual cortex. And closing your eyes sometimes can help, but it's not always enough, because your brain is still getting light, and even if it's not getting detail, it's still kind of trying to see. And if you want to test this, go in any room, close your eyes, and try to see, oh, is the light brighter here? Is the light brighter there? So a great way to start getting sensitive naturally without a biochemical enhancement to your third eye is be in perfectly dark spaces. If you can't do that, then put 2 blindfolds over your eyes. One doesn't always do it. Maybe tie something soft and put an eye mask over it. Whatever you have to do. If you can make your room perfectly dark at night, even better. And ask a question or just think about a topic and totally relax. Don't try, don't generate, and just see what images come to you. Now, being rational about this, being grounded, if you think about chess or you think about doing backflips or learning judo, at the very beginning of developing a skill, you're probably not going to have 100% perfect proficiency, right? If you ask a question, where is my next big break going to come from, or my next job offer, or my next partner, or my next adventure, or what's going to happen tomorrow, or what's going to happen to me on my next birthday, and you want to develop your psychic abilities with certain questions like this, or why is this person I love sick? What's the fastest way to heal them? You might get flashes of information that might be accurate, but just like developing skills in judo, there's a lot of small things like the pineal gland, and in subtle ways, you get stronger and stronger. And so if you want to develop this skill, just to be realistic, you want to invest time every day. You would take judo lessons 2-3 times a week, have full concentration and dedication, condition your body, practice over time, stay conditioned. So it's really great to have psychic abilities, and then as you build them, you don't need to keep as much practice. When I gave that reading to those 2 people at that party, I didn't take a really long time and meditate for hours ahead of time and take like a big handful of spirulina. I'm just ready, open, and conditioned. So I want to offer you guys a guided meditation right now. So if you're multitasking or doing anything else, I'd like to offer to you just to kind of relax and close your eyes. And I just want to give you a preview of something that you could do to help take yourself to a level where you're starting to perceive bits of psychic information. So I'd offer that you can close your eyes and just take one deep breath and breathe it in full of white light, and just exhale pretty strongly. And as you slowly breathe in, with every in-breath, breathe in white light, and exhale any thoughts, any images, any stories that have to do with anything during the day. As you breathe in white light, exhale anything on your to-do list, any messages you might want to reply to, anything of your body and environment, and inhale that white light. And as you exhale, fill your whole body with light. And if any thoughts come to you, just go back to this visualization where you're breathing in white light. And as you exhale, you fill it in your whole body. If anything comes up in your mind, take it and put it in a box. And know that that box will be there after this meditation, and that you can pull everything out and you won't forget anything. But you'll be here right now. And as you breathe in white light 3 more times, and you exhale anything else from your mind, and as you inhale again slowly, just relax your whole body, your head, your face, your chest. As you slowly breathe in, exhale and release your stomach, your legs, your feet. And now as you inhale, if you can, inhale slowly through your nose and imagine a purple light as you inhale going to the center of your brain. And as you exhale, imagine a white light coming down from the heavens up through the crown of your head. And just continue this white light coming down and this purple light going in. And visualize in the center of your brain a purple star. See this star slowly glowing more and more brightly, filling itself with light. And again, if anything comes up, put them in that box. You'll remember it later. Don't act on any distraction. Keep your eyes closed. Keep your body relaxed. And as you slowly breathe in, just flush the center of your brain with that white and purple light. And take your awareness now to the center of your head and see a doorway illuminated in light. And this is a purple door, and it has been opened before. And just ask yourself silently, what's behind this door? What information, energetic, psychic, or astral, is waiting for me to be given through my intuition? And just as how you know how to allow something to happen in your own body instead of forcing it, I want you to allow that door to open. Don't push it, don't try to move it. Just slowly breathe and fill it with light and allow it to creak open naturally. And as it creaks open, whether it's a little bit or a lot, allow something to come out of that door. Some animal, some symbol, some message. And don't try, and just feel. And with your eyes relaxed, shift your awareness to that edge of that door, to whatever's coming through. And just allow yourself to notice it. And the difference between intuition and imagination is intuition is still, it's consistent. Whatever's coming through is something specific that will not go away. The imagination of the mind runs constantly and changes, and you can ignore that distraction. Feel that from two of you. And as you slowly breathe in that river of white and purple light, allow this information to shift somewhere in your life. Just ask for a slight vision or bit of information, clairvoyance, clairsentience, to see and know your life with this information applied to it. See how something is and could be different. And as you do, just feel your life with this information applied. Don't question it or judge it. You can do that later. And just notice a shift. Just notice this is information that you didn't read or you didn't hear. You just opened and received it, and it was already there for you. I'm just going to give you a couple more seconds to really be at peace with this information. And it might be a little personal, but I'm going to ask everybody courageously if you'd like to share. And I'm going to pause the recording when I ask you. And you don't have to, but I just wanted to offer an opportunity to everybody to share your experience, because we can all grow from each other. So resuming recording, thanks everybody for sharing. And one of the nice things about smaller workshops is that we can have the time for more personal time and to go a bit deeper, and I really love that. When I do workshops, in California here, well, I guess we're all in California, but a lot of times, there can be 30, 40, or 50 people. And when it's smaller, like in a telepathy workshop I did up in SF, we really got to connect a lot. So, you've all felt directly what can happen when you empower and engage your third eye a little bit. And it's often said in a lot of energy circles and chi circles, where attention goes, energy flows. And so you've just experienced sending your attention to your third eye. And you don't need to know exactly where it is. You don't need to know the genetic code or everything that's ever written about it. And you don't need to read all the books. And with that one technique that we all just experienced, and we felt all of us notice information coming from, if all you did for a week was that technique, just set a timer for 10 minutes and make it part of your routine. Evening is best. You could also do morning, evening, because it's dark. And you... if you do the grounding, centering, and clearing exercise, or do it after a shower, or do it after a meditation, then it's much easier to have your mind clear, where you put the thoughts into a box. And you can really gain a lot of insight and information much faster. One of the benefits of fourth dimensional consciousness, astral energetic consciousness, is you don't work through time and space. If you have a situation like with your family or with your life, and you use logic like time and space, scenarios, cause and effect then that's a relatively slow way of making decisions, of getting information. Like, you have to go through things, you have to compare things, you have to gather data. But if you're considering something and you just open up psychically and you just allow your higher self to give you what you need, then it's almost effortless. And instead of taking, an hour doing a thought experiment like Einstein would do, um, or instead of writing and mapping everything out as a lot of guides to decision making, even the Harvard Business Review, I've studied their guide to decision making, and there's a lot of very complex ways of making decisions. And as you enhance and open your third eye, yes, psychic abilities for other people are great, but getting information that you need most for your most important life scenario at any moment, it's just so rich. I've paid a lot of people a lot of money, 80, 100, 200, $400 an hour for sessions. And those sessions can be extremely valuable. But the more my third eye opened and the more my crown chakra opened and the more I was able to receive universal wisdom, intelligence, and have access to my subconscious, and at higher levels, access to divine beings, access to very knowledgeable beings, all I need to do is get still, ask a question, and get the answer. And that saves what used to be, 30, 45 minutes of a phone call, spending a lot of money to figure out the answer to a scenario. And it can be kind of tough sometimes when you're starting to do this, because there's this concept of faith. And again, we have delusion validation. Is this my imagination? Is it being invented? How can I rely on this? Should I get the data? And the way you validate that psychic information is a natural human skill anybody can build, any of us can learn judo. Even if you're in a wheelchair, you can learn judo, is you test it. And if your test comes up accurate, then you succeeded. And if it comes up non-accurate, then okay, you refine your technique. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It's like you're in judo, you try to do a backflip, you don't do it, you land on your side, you're a little bit bruised, you make some mistake, and then you try again. So, there's a lot of ways to validate things. And I want to organize experiments of people where we have a lot of psychics in a group, ask them all the same question, don't allow them to communicate, and see what answers come out. And this has been done in the past with coordinates of stars, with numbers like 384,624,000 dot, and 25 other numbers. And when people get it accurate multiple times in a row and multiple people get it accurate, they're like, okay, this person's tapped in and open and clear. And just the other day, I told Pasquale this. I was listening to a book where a character who could travel through dimensions traveled to a beach where diamonds were just all over this beach, took all these diamonds, went back to Earth and sold them and got $700,000. And this book was written in the 70s. And I just wondered, for my understanding of the story, how much was that in today's dollars? And I got that this book chapter was written in 1972. And in today's dollars, that would be worth 700,000, as it was written in the book, would be worth about 4 million. And I'm not, a practicing economist, and I'm good at math, but I didn't do any calculation. I didn't think about the rate of inflation or any of that. And I thought, okay, great, perfect time to validate. I'm not on live TV. And so I just Googled $700,000 in 1972, what's the value of it today? And, before I did that, again, I thought I received 4 million. And Google said 4.2 million, or I think, 4,198,000. And I'm like, oh, that's so awesome. I got it accurate. And there was a margin of error. I didn't get 4.2 million with precision, but I got pretty darn close. And when things like that happen, it's really exciting because, magic is fun. And when you get really good at this, you can use it for a lot of things. If you look up shows of psychic detectives on YouTube, I actually saw an episode where the police were hunting a serial murderer. They couldn't nail it down. They asked a psychic. She held items belonging to the murder victims and a few evidence items. She got impressions. She gave those impressions to the police. She told them information. They caught the killer. The information matched up. So the killer was verified by physical evidence. And the cops are like, we don't know how she did it, but her information was legit. So we're going to keep working with her. And it was cool because you could see, these weren't actors. And it's like, if we can get information like that, why wouldn't we use it? And so I want to encourage all of you to reclaim this part of your birthright, reclaim this part of your humanity. You may not be doing it to get on a TV show. You may not be doing it to be a medical intuitive, but it might just be a very efficient, practical element of life to develop your psychic abilities. You know, if you're on a date with somebody, or you're spending quality time with somebody, and you want to know if it's okay to bring up a certain topic, tap in psychically and ask. As you get better, you don't have to do the meditations and warm up. If you're wondering about a decision in life, you know, tap in, go to that door, open that door, see what comes out, learn to interpret it through your tests, and there you go. And through your hopes, through your dreams, through your life goals, just imagine if the decisions you want to make, if the trials you would do and the experiments you would do with business, with anything, would go so much faster. So I want to offer just a couple more things. But before I do, I just want to know, by a show of hands, all your cameras are on, does anybody have a burning question about anything I've said so far? Just raise your hand if you do.
Me, why did we all think about animals? That brought me, that's like, why?
Yeah, so animals carry a lot of symbolism. And I'm going to answer that psychically instead of going to a textbook answer. You know, animals carry a lot of information. And since we were all doing a very, very, very brief exercise in a sober state, I believe for everybody but one person, but you're still pretty sober. Animals carry a lot of weight. And if you're only doing an exercise where you're doing literally like 90, 95 seconds, and you want to get the most information possible, you get a symbol that carries a lot with it and that is recognizable. And that is not abstract. Animals are concrete. Spiders, pigs, foxes, these are concrete images that we can look up, that we can Google spiritual meanings of a fox, of a pig, of a spider. And they carry a lot of information. And so it's like a file that you unzip. You know, if you download, you know, my book, for example, I could send you my book as a PDF, or I could zip it. And a zip file is generally, you know, smaller, more compact, more simple. And if you get that, then you unzip it. And it's this one little thing. And now you open it and, you know, there's 200, 300 pages of text. And so with an animal in psychic phenomenon, you have all this information boiled down to one word. And it's like if you want a book and you want to learn, somebody says, oh, you should read this book. And you're like, well, what is it about? And when somebody gives you a summary, they don't tell you every single of the 100,000 words in that book. They don't even tell you all the chapter titles and all the summaries of each chapter. They probably don't even say their favorite part and read aloud their favorite part and say why it's their favorite part. They'll probably say a sentence or two. And they'll summarize those 300 pages into a sentence or two. And if you go even further and take a book and ask somebody that you trust, what's that book about? They could say, oh, it's about surrender. Oh, it's about personal empowerment. And those two words represent 100,000 words. So animals in this sense are very, very similar. You want to get information, as much information as possible. And instead of you getting long lists of words that might take a lot of work in your mind to filter, like when I channel, or when I'm channeling right now, all this information is coming through me. And if we were in, like, you know, a dojo, for example, and I was a very strict traditional Japanese teacher, I would just say, that's all you need. Right? And that's all you need would be like an animal. It's a kernel, and then it's up to you, the student, to unpack it. But here in the West, we expect our teachers, because of Western teaching conventions, to unpack things for us and for us to do less work. So I'm unpacking it for you because that's the convention in this country and in this culture. Is that enough of an answer for you, or are you still curious? Okay, great. Any other questions about any of the topics I've brought up so far? Show of hands.
Cool. And then another, very quickly, I wrote down, just remembering, because I'm not sure what we did. You said like a white light coming in and throwing out, and then like a star in the middle of the brain, and then a door, right?
Yeah. So because this is recording, and if any of you message me afterwards, just as an email reminder, I can send it to you. So I'm gonna describe it quickly, and I'm gonna describe why quickly. And actually, this is what I was getting to next in the workshop. So thanks for asking. Your psychic skills are strong. But of course, you now have no way of validating that, so you have to take my word for it. So I wanted this very clear. So the first part of the exercise was a very typical type of clearing meditation. You breathe in through your nose, you exhale through your mouth. That was meant to get your nervous system more coherent and your brain waves in more alpha state. And you can look those things up if you're interested in them. Alpha is more relaxed, more receptive. Beta is more go, 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 caffeine of the day. Then I said, focus on your body, do a body scan, relax everything top to bottom. Most of us, more commonly in the West, live in our heads, not our centers, or most of us definitely don't live in our lower body unless we're tap dancers. And so you relax your muscles, and that helps move the energy down and get grounded, which is important. If you do third eye work, it's very easy to leave your body, especially if you use substances to alter your biochemistry. It's a natural consequence for a lot of people who go that route to lose groundedness and identification. I don't want to get into that, but it's a risk, and it's also something to help embody the information, take it from the spirit world down into the physical world and into the physical frequency. If I didn't do that, for example, instead of an animal, you might have gotten something more abstract. Then the lights. So the white light is meant to align you, meant to take you to a state of alignment where you are in a state of spiritual openness, and you're not forward or not backward. You're not grasping for something coming from need. Your awareness isn't going out. Your feelings aren't going out. You're not being needy or clingy or shameful or guilty or suspicious or angry or scared. Any of those emotional things are being out of alignment. Also, a white light going through your crown helps you shift away your ego. So the most common block to the crown chakra is ego. And we see this in some big spiritual teachers. They get powerful, and they are powerful, but they haven't fully let go of a temporary human ego, and that goes to their head, and then they abuse their power in certain ways, and that's unfortunate. But it's like you have a white cloth with a black spot, and people fixate on the black spot, and you hear those stories, and it unfortunately damages reputations. But when you have that white light come through, that kind of purifies, at least for the moment, and a lot for the rest of your life, just a bit, your ego, so you can receive information and postpone judgment. And then the purple, the sixth chakra, is a purple color. And when that comes in through your third eye, that activates that chakra and that opens it. And that wavelength is that color of that chakra, of that energetic organ, of that energetic center. So if you think about a physical organ, your heart needs nitrous oxide, for example. You get it from beets, you get it from chocolate, you can get it from supplements, and it, for most people, makes it naturally. And if you take nitrous oxide for the organ you call your heart functions better, right? So if you take purple light, it's like a little bit of nitrous oxide, but instead of a physical organ, you have this energetic organ we call a chakra, or chakra, depending on your pronunciation, and the light kind of nourishes it and activates it a little bit. And we could talk about healing, opening the sixth chakra for an entire week, and I'm going to start giving these webinars weekly, which will be really fun for anybody who wants to join. So when you do that, you activate the first and second chakras. And if we were to really do more, or we were working one-on-one and you really wanted me to help your system more, we would actually do stuff with all the chakras. So your information about anything could come in. So I could say something for each of you about a certain chakra, and I'll just say it. With the fox, the heart chakra, with unity, it's all of them, but in that case, it's the first two. It's the second, mainly the second, a little bit of the first. With the spider, it's the throat. And with the pig, the heart and a bit of the third, but a lot of the heart and a lot of the back of the heart. And I would just encourage you, just for the sake of time, to look for the pig, the difference between the front and back chakras. And for any of you who want to write down stuff about energetic anatomy, Barbara Brennan, Brennan, and again, this is recorded, so you can skip to this part of the recording if you don't want to write it down. She has a book called Hands of Light and another book called Core Light Healing. She's one of the most spiritually influential people in the country, says mainstream media. She has a school of healing in Florida. She's been doing this for a long time, and she can talk about the chakras, but just really a tiny bit. We take in through the front, and the back is our shadow. And the shadow isn't anything negative, or it's what's hidden, it's what's subconscious, it's what's influencing us out of our awareness until we integrate that part of our shadow and keep integrating. The next part of that meditation, so I've done this at festivals in a lot of places. So the door inside, so first the star is activating your pineal gland, sending light to it, activating the center of that chakra. And the door is, say, opening that third eye. That's what we were literally doing. And if I said open that eye directly, that has so many connotations. I didn't want you to think about it and think, oh, am I opening my third eye or not? So I didn't want to say you are now opening your third eye, because that could feel a bit contrived, to be honest. So using a metaphor is actually much easier in these cases. Even after you've heard this, it's a metaphor that you can relate to. When you open a door, something comes through. When you open a third eye, if you're taking this workshop, you've taken it because you've come to learn things, and I don't want to give you something you're learning about. It's like asking, how do I do that? And saying, do that. Like, wait, you didn't give me instructions, you just repeated yourself. So opening that door is a symbolic representation of opening your third eye, and allowing light to come through is allowing information to come through. Now, once you're conditioned and you want to do this on command, you can envision it as anything. You can envision it as a window, a cave mouth, a faucet, but a door is really handy, and you can open it wide or close it. And if you're ever on a biochemically altered experience, or you're ever getting a lot of information and you want less information, it's too much, you can just close that door and even put a latch on it. I've done so much work that I often keep mine mostly closed, because otherwise I'll just know so much about somebody that it's a little bit hard to be, average human with them. Like yesterday I was home and somebody made a comment, and I instantly knew all the stuff about this person's psychology, and I didn't want to comment on it because they weren't in a place to receive it, and we didn't have an agreement or container for me to start sharing all this personal stuff. And so I just, kind of closed it and also walked away a little bit. So as you develop proficiency, you want to learn to modulate. And it's kind of like if you develop empathic abilities, but you don't know how to modulate, you might merge with people and you might feel their feelings as your own until you learn how to modulate. And so you may tone down your empathic abilities or restrict who you are around. Any questions on any of that stuff? I know that was a lot. Yeah. Oh, thumbs up. Great. Well, we have about 7 minutes, keeping with the original time that I had set. I do feel a bit of a question though. So if you think you were holding it for the end, go ahead and ask it now. No? Okay, no problem. So I wanted to offer, let's see what's coming up next. I wanted to offer you, no, not I wanted to. This is a big one. So the third eye is extremely important to your growth and your life in this lifetime and on your path. I'm a pretty dedicated magician, and if you're talking to me or with me, and hearing this workshop, then you have an interest in developing your consciousness in certain ways. And there's so much wisdom and information the world needs right now to solve problems efficiently. We wonder as a civilization, and I'm closing my eyes so distractions aren't coming through, and so my ego filter doesn't activate by looking at your faces and expressions and judging and trying to discern, oh, am I on target or not? And I know I'm on target if my eyes are closed, and that's a human vulnerable weakness I am compensating for. So as you're developing these abilities or working with people who's developing these abilities, it's good to know, how do you strengthen your skills? And I am strengthening the skill at that moment. So as we're going in this era of exponential technological increases and exponential development of the speed of computers and quantum computing and AI and robotics, and even governments are changing very fast. Google has a tool they made to help rewrite constitutions because that's happening faster than ever. And I wanted just to offer you that it's almost impossible at a human scale to keep up with things with the normal method of reading. Even if you learn how to speed read at 1,000 words a minute and zip through pages at the best speed readers of the world, there's still so much information. You have a news story, and to get clarity on that news story, you might want to read 3 Democratic sources in the case they misinformation, 3 Republican, 3 moderate, 3 from China, 3 from the UK, 3 from India, 3 from Canada, 3 from Britain, right? And then even then, do you read the blogs of the personal accounts? For that one news story, you could spend 3 hours and you might not have the full picture until you meet with every person involved and hear their intentions behind what happened. And then it's a month, right? And the story is old news. So we need to, if we want to make significant impact in the world, we need to tap into higher sources of information to see what's relevant. Because if you did that, all that information wouldn't be relevant. There's biases, there's third-party interests, there's distortions and lapses of memory and cultural blurs. So if you can tap into psychic information, it will allow you to have a competitive edge over the beings who don't, including the beings who have an opposite agenda of what you have, but it will also exponentially increase your ability to achieve your goals. And this is, if we never talk again about this, this is something just in service to you, and just a very grounded, practical fact. Magic is exciting, psychic stuff is exciting, but it's worth prioritizing because it's access to information greater than simply reading. It's access to information greater than simply thinking about it. It's tapping into the Akashic records. It's opening to the vast cosmic library and getting exactly what you need when you need it. Bashar, who is an alien channeled through a human named Daryl Anka, and who another human claims to channel. Sorry, I thought someone's coming in. Bashar says, abundance is defined by having what you need when you need it. A lot of people think abundance is having a certain amount of money, a certain house, a certain car, a certain lifestyle. And while all those things could be desirable, deep down, do we need all that to be happy? Sure, we would have a spike in happiness, but most studies of people who win the lottery or become quadriplegic, their happiness set point returns within a few months to where it has levelly been. And there's ways to increase your happiness set point, but for most of us, we get those things and we return to how we were. And karmically, if you have a scenario, you escape that scenario, you don't learn that karmic lesson, you're still now in a position where that scenario, that person, that pattern repeats itself. Yeah, like we've all felt that. So how we can learn to not have to repeat these cycles of karma in these life situations, how we can be abundant in information and not have curiosity, and not fear the unknown, is simply being at a state of just peaceful knowing and presence and allowing information to come through. And I want to give you a personal story that is something that's happening right now. And the story is mostly concluded. It's about 98% concluded, but it happened in the last week. And so I'm going to be careful of what I say just to protect people involved, but I run an organization, and there's somebody in that organization who felt wronged by me. And they were they were undergoing a process to enact revenge. Now, on paper, they were in the wrong. And I did something to enforce everything being corrected. I essentially issued a fine. And that person had a big problem with it. And they really reacted strongly. And it was taking up a lot of time and emotion. So I reversed the fine. I apologized. I thought how I could have done it better. I realized, justice doesn't have to be served. I just want to move along with life. It's not a big deal, even if it was okay to have happen. And this person was so fiercely intent about revenge based on stuff from their past with their immediate family that they were projecting onto me, that they were in the process of taking legal action. And it gave me so much emotion thinking about the consequences of their legal action that I tapped in constantly. And every time I tapped in, it's okay, nothing's going to happen, he's not going to do it, it doesn't matter. Yet my awareness shifted, it collapsed because I had attachment to the consequences of that legal action, that I felt worry, I felt fear, I felt concern. I had to ground myself. I did a little emotional eating because I felt so much emotional attachment. And I was working during the day, and I didn't just sit down and meditate for 3 hours and fully take in this message that everything would be okay and he wouldn't go through the action. Finally, a day or two before he would have taken the action, I talked with somebody in the legal field specifically related to what he was doing, somebody actually who could step into the scenario if they needed. And they said, yeah, nothing could happen. He's wasting his time. You have nothing to worry about. You should have talked to me 2 weeks ago when everything started. And I just totally relaxed. And then after that, I talked with a mutual friend who spoke with him, and they said, yeah, he knows even if he did this, he would lose, and he's probably not going to do it. And that let my whole system relax. That let the part of my ego that was attached and worried completely relax, hearing that on the physical plane. And as much as I'm dedicated to spiritual service in this life and in this time of my life specifically, I felt in that how I failed to live up to the highest possible way of performance. But I see that that's okay. It's like if you have your judo training, are you going to be doing a backflip every 5 minutes, every day for 2 weeks? Probably not. Even if you take away your sleeping time, it's a strain. And so even with your third eye, even with your surrender of your ego, it's a strain. Even when you can access this information, it takes its toll on the body. And when it does, just like when you lift weights, they take your toll on your muscles, you break down your muscles, and then you rebuild your muscles with proper living. And it's the same thing with this. You get a knowing, and you can digest and take that knowing in, or you take it in and you don't fully integrate it into all of your chakras. And I'm working on clearing a lot of my lower chakras. And so while I'm at peace now, and while I know both factually on the material realm and spiritually on the higher realms, I'm able to fully take this in and proceed in life. Yet, if I didn't have that spiritual access, if I didn't have that psychic information from my guides that said everything would be okay, I would have freaked out a lot more throughout this last week. So about just under 70%, I allowed my access to be embodied, but that little over 30% of perceived consequences was so strong, I was freaking out a little bit. And so even for me, who's a teacher of this stuff, I realize room that I have to grow. And I'm grateful for this scenario. And in all the healing traditions, they say, be grateful for those who you need to forgive and the scenarios you feel hurt you, because they build you up and they strengthen you for the future. They're the cocoon that you bust your wings to break out of. And I know that for what I want to do in this world, the temples that I want to build, the city that I want to found, there may be challenges that come, and I need to hold my equilibrium and peace on live television, surrounded by people perfectly, and this was just training for that. So I hope that was helpful for you, and I hope that was inspirational for you, and I hope this workshop was a whole mix of introductory level, intermediate, and high level stuff. So before I share some closing bits of information, are there any other questions? Is there anything about the third eye or sixth chakra or psychic skills that you've had in general that you were hoping I would talk about that you want to learn? Open to any questions right now. Cool. Glad everybody seems satisfied. So a few bits of administration. So thanks again so much for showing up, the familiar faces and the new faces. So my primary website, magicalgoldenage.com, if you go there and you're not signed up, or a friend goes there, there's a pop-up and a couple other places to enter your email. And I send out emails twice a week, full of spiritual lessons, full of guidance, full of advice, full of techniques. And I'm going to start opening a physical store with candles, crystals, incense, teas, paintings, things like that, if you're interested in that type of thing. I have a lot of content on my YouTube. So it's youtube.com/magicisreal. And on the emails, there's links to everything I'm mentioning. So I've got meditations, there's interviews, there's micro videos like what I put on my Instagram, and there's all sorts of fun little techniques and exercises. My Instagram is @sorcererdavid, like my email, and I try to post a good variety of uplifting content, and I have a lot of people who, in direct messages and in the comments, really like what's written. And so personally, if you want to work with me further on any topic, I generally have a protocol of working with people for 6 months for 1 hour per week. And it doesn't have to be that. It could be customized, a one-time thing and every other week, or a non-structure. But I love helping people grow. And I generally customize sessions to whatever the needs are. So if it's getting through a challenging time of life, if it's getting through how to build a mystical ability, or healing something in the past, or manifesting in the future, I love offering this. If you want a workshop for yourself or an event or community, I love offering workshops. And I can on a lot of topics. My primary ones are third eye, skills with energy, healing the chakras, money magic, and then creativity and sexuality in the second chakra, because that's a big thing in our culture right now. I have a few courses coming up on my website, general foundations of magic, manifestations, how magic works. I put a lot of time into it. It'll be very exciting. Pasquale is doing a great job helping with that. Thanks, Pasquale. I have one on money magic, and I've taught workshops on money magic. So send me an email reminder if you want a recording of that. Again, I have a book called Magic is Real. I have a few more coming out soon after some tech work is done with some of the other things I mentioned. So those are very rich transmissions. People have said they had goosebumps while reading it. The audiobook version is epic. And then last but not least, there's one more thing I wanted to share is I'm going to start doing these weekly. And I'll probably be doing them at this date and time, Thursday nights at 8, because it just feels like a good time that is accessible to people. And I'm not, they'll be free for a bit with donations, and then they'll probably going to be charged for the recordings, for accessing the recordings. That's probably how it'll be for a while. So definitely keep in touch and message me anytime if you want the info for those. I need to figure out exactly how to do them with the Zoom info. And I just really appreciate you coming. And if you want to offer additional support, my Patreon is patreon.com/magicaljoy. And I'm very grateful for any support you want to offer, whether it's the energy of money, whether it's referring somebody to work with sessions, whether it's sharing a video, or whether just, you know, sending appreciation and love. So thank you everybody so much for your time. I really am very grateful to be able to be of service to you. I hope this was useful, helpful, and interesting, and I hope you all have a good night.
Thank you very much. Can you repeat your Instagram, please?
Yeah, Sorcerer David. That's SORCERER David.
SOURCER, David.
Actually, take out the U, but otherwise, yeah.
Sorcerer. SORCER.
SORCERER.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and again, if you don't find it, you can just email me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I loved it. Thank you.
My pleasure. You're so welcome. All right, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.